From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, hello everybody. Steve Politti here, back at the pod. Thanks for joining us. It's been a while. Joined as always by Brian and Pat. We've got a lot to talk about. Exactly 1 month from today or tomorrow until we're in Boston. Training camp starting up tomorrow, Wednesday. First time they'll be out there. But fellas, this is interesting. So I had a wild morning. Became on 2 national college football radio shows. Can you guess what they wanted me to talk about?
The quarterback battle between Gavin Wimsatt and Noah Vedral.
That's exactly. How did you know? Yeah, right. That's gonna get it in Alabama. No, that's not it.
I thought it was your live golf beat writer future plans.
They wanted to hear about. That's a better guess. I have done it. I did do a couple radio spots on that too. If you want to talk about live golf, that'll be our second podcast some other time. Yeah, we can dive into the scene at Trump Bedster. No, I want to talk about Drew Singleton, which I was kind of surprised about. I didn't. I wrote a column about that. If you're not following the situation at Rutgers, they're hopeful that an NCAA appeal will allow their linebacker, Drew Singleton, who had declared for the draft, who hurt his ankle in the bowl game and now wants to come back at Rutgers. They're hopeful that he will come in the lineup. People apparently are piping mad about this in Alabama. And I just didn't, I was on a show with Greg McElroy. People remember him as the former Jets quarterback. Obviously, he's a celebrity in Alabama, national championship winning quarterback, I think, in Alabama. Fired up. Who knew, right? I mean, that didn't see that one coming. Give me an update on where you think this is, guy. I mean, what do you think the situation? What's going to happen with Drew Singleton, and is it likely that we'll see him on the field this year? Go ahead, Pat.
Is it likely? I think it is likely because there was precedent before. There were 2 cases that were more played out on COVID hardship rather than this unique circumstance. But I think because there was precedent and the national, I don't want to say the politicking, but the way it's kind of made headlines and the way it's been picked up, I think the NCAA, this just like feels like such an ant under their shoe, right? Like why this is such a minuscule thing for the NCAA to take any heat on. So like, I just can't imagine it becoming such a big issue that they need to create more negative press about the NCAA.
Right. Great. Greg McElroy's take on this radio show, which caught me off guard, was that if the NCAA lets Drew Singleton play, essentially every player in college football is going to turn pro and test the NFL and want to come back, and it's going to be chaos on these rosters. And my response to Greg McElroy was, aren't they already all professional athletes at this point? I mean, you're a radio show in Alabama, Fonseca, right? I mean, am I wrong about this? Everyone's getting paid. Drew Singleton actually hasn't gotten paid. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yes, and good. They all should be paid. ESPN dropped a massive story yesterday where they surveyed 200 massively important people in college football, and some 80% said that in 5 years, schools themselves are going to start paying players. This is where college football is headed. And the thing that everyone's mad about is rules. There are rules in college football. There are rules in life. We must follow them, or else the slippery slope that you're talking about is going to happen. And college football players are going to be playing basketball, and college athletics, as we know it, is going to be destroyed. Everyone is so worried about this. And then all the people that are worried about it in September, week 1, are going to have 5 TVs in their living room playing every game possible, betting 70 games every which way. And it's like when people were saying they're going to stop watching the NFL, and all of a sudden it's still the most popular sporting league in the world, right? Like, it's all fake outrage that people are trying to conserve this idea of college football that they have. And look,
it's over.
It's dead. Of all the things that are happening in college sports that Greg Schiano called all of them a seismic shift, are we really going to get so beat up over Drew Singleton, who might not even be the best linebacker Rutgers has on its roster, coming back for 1 year? Like, right. First of all, when you told me this, I can't believe there's this much outrage. Well, actually, I probably should believe this, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And to your broader point, if they need, if that's a different topic entirely, if they really need Drew Singleton that badly to play this year, the defense might be in trouble. He's a nice kid. but I thought they had moved on from him. But to the broader issue, Pat, it is sort of fascinating at this point in time in college football. And we'll talk now about the other massive issue I was asked on 2 national radio shows about, and they talked about it on the Yahoo pod. Greg Schiano coming out and saying, "Look, we need millions of dollars to keep this roster intact." And I thought that was a really kind of a remarkable thing for him to go out and publicly say, and it just explains where college football is right now. I mean, it's one thing if Ryan Day and Ohio State and the machinery of Ohio State is going to say, all right, we're going to pay players, Texas A&M, we're going to pay recruits, we're going to raise millions of dollars, to do it. That's a different sell at Rutgers, right? I mean, absolutely. I don't know that. Yeah, is there a stomach for that? Do you think?
I would hope so. If you're Rutgers fans listening, right. First of all, I when I think of like NIL, I always think about this. In Major League Baseball, right? There are big money teams, and then there are teams that it's just okay if they don't pay as much as other teams, right? Like the Oakland Athletics compared to the Yankees in terms of payroll, right? Like, so that competitive scale has always been there in college football too, but now it's become more apparent than ever. We're just going to be okay with some teams, Ohio State, Ryan Day asking for 14 million and Rutgers asking for, a million. Like that gap is always going to seemingly just keep growing and growing. And then when the little guy wins, we applaud it and it's amazing. And when Alabama and Ohio State win, it's like, no wonder why they win.
Yeah, Oakland's 40 games below 500. Just I think that's part of the thing. But it is. I mean, this is going to be what this season's like now. I think if he's right, and there are some young guys who have great years. If Gavin Wimsatt wins a starting job and throws for 400 yards against Boston College, our first reaction is going to be, oh no, someone's going to come here and take him and pay him. Do you think he's right, Brian? Is that a fear? And is it a game that Rutgers can Rutgers be a player in that landscape?
It's absolutely a justified fear. Every offseason essentially is going to be free agency. All these guys are essentially on 1-season deals that get renewed every year. There will be guys who don't want to leave for the money, whether that's their family situation or they love the system they're in, etc. But yeah, this is the new reality until the NCAA or in all these commissioners' pipe dreams, the federal government comes in and takes all the important stuff they're allegedly working on and starts focusing on college football and NIL stuff. Until that happens, this is the reality we live in. Can Rutgers compete in this environment? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that they will. Rutgers has been behind in facilities for years.
Right. And they've struggled raising money for years. That's the other part of it.
Right. That's probably the broader point I was reaching. Yeah, exactly.
When they want to build the academic building, they got one big donation and they had to take loans on their money from the Big Ten going forward. They couldn't, that's sort of been the history. There's not this, they rely on the same 5 or 6 donors. They don't have that deep base of people who want to shell out money for this. And it's beyond, this is more like some of those guys, all right, I could put my name in the quarterback room. That's a lasting thing. It's different when you're saying, all right, I'm going to give this X amount of money and it's going to go to a running back. It's just a different situation. And it's a hard sell for a lot of people. Greg Schiano knows it's a hard sell for a lot of people too. It's just a fascinating sort of world that we're living in now. And Rutgers is part of that, but not quite part of it. It's really interesting to see how that's going to unfold the next couple of years. All right. So you guys were in Indianapolis where this, I imagine, was the big topic, one of the big topic of conversations. Give me some highlights from Big Ten Media Day. I mean, what was your biggest surprise? What was the topic that stuck out to you the most that people were talking about?
I thought one of them was Kevin Warren saying we need federal regulations on NIL, like Brian said. Like, what can the federal government possibly do to regulate this Wild West, whatever? I mean, come on, we know how Congress is. Like Brian said, that's crazy. And I asked Barry Alvarez about it a little bit, and he was just like, we don't really have a good sense of what this could possibly be, and just completely dodged the question. So I think that's just more of a stage and a nice line to throw out there, but really has no backing.
Right. I mean, he dropped the bomb too. Warren dropped the bomb about USC and UCLA entering the Big Ten as full members and getting the big slice of the pie. You guys talked to him. I don't know which one of you actually did the interview because you had a co-byline of the story, but What did he say to you when you said when you pressed him on that because certainly Rutgers had to wait 6 years and is still waiting.
Yeah, if you can condense his 8-line answer, it's essentially the first line, which is this is a case by case basis, which subtextually it's USC and UCLA had a lot more leverage than Rutgers. My understanding of this whole thing is that essentially Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC accelerated this 2 mega league future that we're on, and the Big Ten had to compete. They went after USC and UCLA, and when USC, UCLA, when Rutgers and Nebraska and Maryland were joining the Big Ten, it felt like the pressure was much more on the other side. I don't know. I wasn't in the negotiating rooms. I don't know, but I'm sure we'll talk a little later about whether Rutgers and Maryland and Nebraska and all of them should be mad about this.
That's a good transition. All right, so we're going to do true or false. Let's dive into our weekly segment. If you're new to the podcast, this is how it works. I will give a statement to our two guys, and they will say true or false, and we'll discuss everything at the end. The first topic, true or false. Rutgers should be furious that UCLA and USC will be full members upon entering the Big Ten. Fonseca, true or false?
False.
Pat?
False.
All right, I'm going to take the other side of it. True, but let's talk about it at the end. True or false? Noah Federal will start and play nearly all the snaps against Boston College. Brian, true or false?
True.
Okay, Pat.
I'm sticking with true.
All right, I'm going to go false there as well, just for the fun of it. True or false? We talked about it already. Drew Singleton will win his appeal and play for Rutgers this season. Brian.
True.
Pat.
True again.
Yeah, I think is also true. I think he will win it. They feel good about it. True or false? Taj Harris is the most important Rutgers newcomer. What do you think? Is he the most important Rutgers newcomer? Brian, true or false?
False.
Okay, Pat.
False as well.
All right, we'll hear who I say true. We'll hear who you think it is. And the second, true or false? Rutgers will open as a 7 or more point underdog at Boston College. Brian, you're the odds guy. True or false?
Probably true.
Pat?
True.
Yeah, I'm going to say true as well. I think it's the touchdowns could be what it is. True or false? Josiah Harris, the recent transfer from Texas A&M, will be a significant rotational player for the Scarlet Knights. Brian, is that kid going to play? True or false?
True, but probably later in the season.
Okay. Pat?
They need the help, so true.
True. Okay. I'm going to say true as well. That there are never enough defensive linemen. And finally, true or false? Bronny James. Bronny James is coming to Rutgers. True or false? Brian, what do you got?
Only if he's coming to attend an Ohio State road game. False.
False. Okay. Yeah, I love that story. What do you think, Pat? Got a chance?
True, just for the shock value.
Just for the shock value. I love it. All right. I mean, that's, if you hadn't read the story, Adam Zagoria, one of our who works for us, covers Seton Hall, the great story for the New York Times about his recruitment, saying that he might be, Rutgers is recruiting him. I mean, in a lot of ways, it does make sense because they can give him playing time. It's a developmental program. LeBron James doesn't need the NIL money. But it seems like if Ohio State wants him close to home, that's going to be it's probably going to be the target. It's going to be the likely target, at least on the outside. All right, the one I'm interested in here, if Taj Harris, the receiver transfer, is not the most important Rutgers newcomer, who is it? Who do you got, Brian? Give me a name.
I would say unit. I don't know which one of the offensive linemen it will be, but it has to be that group. Obviously, that was the worst unit on the team last year. It was a big reason why they were 120th out of 132 teams in total offense. So those three guys, or 3 or 4 of the guys, however many of them actually end up playing significant time, they need to play. I mean, again, the bar is very low compared to last year, but they need to play well and live up to some expectations for Rutgers to have any chance of, one, of if they do go with Gavin Wimsatt, of him having any chance of success, and 2, of the offense in general being better than last in the Big Ten. So I think those 3 are pretty evidently the most important newcomers.
Lanny?
I was thinking along the same lines, and just because I'll add to the fact that the receiver room has 4 or 5 guys that are legitimately just as good as Taj Harris. Crookshank's going to be back. Josh Youngblood could have a big season. Sean Ryan's another transfer, and Shaheem Jones is also looking good. So I think there's just more depth and just as good talent as Taj Harris. Whereas, like Brian said, the offensive line really needs help. And I was thinking the most important guy might be JD DiRenzo. Saw him at St. Joe's Ham a few years ago, and I think he's just going to be a really impactful player.
All right. Let's the UCLA USC thing is fascinating. You both said true that false that Rutgers should be furious. I understand your take, but give it to me. One of you guys give it to me. Why should Rutgers not be angry about this?
They would be in the American Athletic Conference.
That's pretty. That's what Greg Shannon told you, right? He just came out and said
exactly.
That, right?
But it's so true. I mean, we're going to complain about a little bit of. Everybody's got debt, right? That's life. Right. Maybe except the Ohio State or whatever. But I would take debt any day over being in the AAC and having no future.
The one thing I will say, and I agree, and the difference what people are missing is that UCLA and USC are coming in as they're negotiating a new TV contract. Rutgers and Nebraska and Maryland came in the middle of one, so they didn't bring the initial value. The only thing I will say about this is that the value Rutgers brought to the Big Ten network is far exceeds what they were paid for. I mean, the early doubters about Rutgers in the Big Ten, it's just a cable box deal. It might have been, but it was a big cable box deal. I mean, it turned that now. There's a reason why the Big Ten is with the SEC as the two top conferences in the nation, and Rutgers is a big reason why that happened. So, I mean, I get it. Certainly that there are reasons, and the leverage, the different place in where we are in the TV deal, but. I mean, I understand if Rutgers, if there are people in Rutgers who are like, good grief, we brought a bigger market than they are. That's the only thing I'll say about that. All right, finally, the quarterback situation. So you guys are sold. You guys think we're going to have Noah Vedral in a heaping handful of Noah Vedral against Boston College. That's what you're telling me.
I am going personally off just the guy started for 2 years in a row. Gavin Wimsatt has not shown any overwhelming ability in the spring, at least, that he will, beat him soundly in a quarterback competition. Greg Schiano sounded like it will be a true open competition in the fall, and he said he's open to multiple quarterbacks playing. So when in doubt, I'm just going to go with the proven guy, and I will, like Greg Schiano, wait for Gavin Wimsatt or even Evan Simon, who apparently is in the competition, to surpass Noah Vedral in camp before I start predicting that.
Yeah, I don't buy the Evan Simon thing at all. I mean, that would stun me. What did you make of that, Pat? When Schiano says he's open to starting multiple quarterbacks, do you think that this is going to be a competition that's going to be won or lost in camp, or are we going to be up in Boston waiting for the first incomplete? Because that's what it'll be. I mean, the first time Noah Vedral underthrows a receiver, which based on what we've seen will be the first series. People are going to be like, "Where's Wimsatt?" I mean, that's what'll happen.
I think no one's going to ever say this publicly about what this Rutgers season is, but this is what I asked Schiano when he was in the press conference on the Big Ten Network. Like, what team does this remind you of? And he said 2004, 2005. And I thought that was really important because it was a developmental year. And I think that's what they want to do at quarterback here, is just develop Wimsatt and make sure that 2 years when he has some experience, that he's going to be the quarterback that everyone thinks he is. So by running him out early, I just think you ruin that development. And that's why I think Rutgers wants to slow play it and let Vedral lead the way with great leadership, which is what he's known for.
That's interesting because those are two very different seasons in Rutgers history, 04 and 05. Obviously, 05 is the breakthrough bowl season. They were really good offensively. Ryan Hart, quarterback, it can put up a lot of points. I just wonder, we are at a different point in college football history too, where, I think there's no sign that Gavin Wimsatt's unhappy here. In fact, quite to the contrary, he seems really happy at Rutgers, seems to love it here. So there's the concern, like, oh yeah, this kid might leave. But at the same point, no one waits anymore in college sports. I mean, that's just kind of the expectation. You're going to go and you're going to play. He's already in the program for a year. I guess I would be personally disappointed if we didn't see a lot of him. I don't know, starting is one thing, but I mean, what's your take on that, Brian? Am I wrong to think that if this season is all about his development, we should see him early and often?
The ideal scenario is that Gavin Wimsatt plays early and often. Whether it's a balance of whether you want the low ceiling but high floor of Vedral, or the high ceiling but lower floor of Wimsatt. It depends on how they view the season. I do think that Sean Gleason, offensive coordinator, has some experience in playing two quarterbacks. He did that a lot at Princeton before he went to Oklahoma State. 2018 season is a good template for what they did. They had they have a guy who's a fullback now on the Packers. He was their starting quarterback, did a lot of running. I don't think Rutgers has a guy in the mold of that, but maybe you platoon those two guys. I think it's possible. But yes, the ideal scenario is Gavin Wimsatt by week 3, week 4 really starts to establish himself, starts starting games, and kind of grabs the role from there.
And I don't think that's going to be, and you did the story on it, Brian. You sat with Noah Vedral. We should talk about that, because I think that's a really cool thing, watching film with him, getting the sense for him that he wants to be a coach someday. I don't think this is going to be as rough. This is not a situation where, the incumbent quarterback is going to be in the transfer portal the next day. I mean, I think Vedral has to know that this day is coming. I think a part of him is he's here to prepare for his next thing, which is coaching. So, I mean, when you sat with him, what's your sense in that way? Would it be a difficult transition if it happens? And what did you get out of that time that you spent with Vedral for that story?
Yeah, he was really, really impressive. As I noted in the story, I am, compared to him, completely football illiterate, and he made a lot of these complicated things sound pretty simple to me. Very confident in the way he speaks, very smart, very astute. I think he's shown in the year since Wimsatt has been here and everyone's focus has been on Wimsatt while Vedral is the starting quarterback, that he's good at dealing with the situation. He's taken it all in stride. Obviously, he wants to play, right? I think he doesn't show that much side of him that he does want to start, right? Obviously. But I think in a situation where Wimsatt does overtake him and takes the job, I think Vedral would be happy to, help him along, help coach him. And like you said, this will be a way for him to prepare for his future. He wants to be a quarterback's coach at some point. And what better way to kind of prepare for that, to help, this young guy learn the rigors of the Big Ten and kind of bring him along.
The other part of this is funny. Looking at pictures of Wimsatt on social media, it just looks like a different person. I mean, a year in that program, that was the best decision he could have made leaving high school. At the time, we're like, oh, he's going to give up his high school year. He's still 18 years old, but he looks, Jay Young in the strength and conditioning program really did a great job developing him. Pat, what have you seen from it? Just the limited amount you've been around? I get it. We'll have a much better sense when we get to camp and we start watching the day-to-day practice. But what have you seen from him?
If I just hit the iron a little bit myself, this next couple of weeks, I'll be in good shape for training camp. So that's really my focus. But
you're a long way, dude.
Yeah, I'm trying to get up to 160. So that's first and foremost. But what I've seen is just a confident kid. The one time he did speak after spring practice, he was very confident in his approach and smart. And like Brian said, very content with his situation. So I'm excited to see him in practice the next couple of weeks, and we'll go from there. But you're right, he definitely is much bigger, and kudos to the strength team at Rutgers. I'm going down.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to going down there to tomorrow for practice. Already put in my interview request for Gavin Wimsatt. I wonder if they will laugh at me quietly or if they'll laugh at me out loud about that. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe they'll make him available to talk. We will see. All right, let's dive into our Rutgers Insider questions. I want to thank everyone who subscribes to our tech service, and we've got some great stuff. Todrick Hunt is hitting it hard with the recruiting on there, with just insights that I'm learning something from his texts every day. So if you haven't subscribed to that service, it's only $5 a month. Come on, get on there. And here's a great question to start out. Everyone is talking about the quarterback position. What does the running back platoon look like? That's interesting. They obviously lost a pro and a pro and Isaiah Pacheco, who is getting first team reps with Kansas City. What do you guys see there at running back? Either one of you take that one.
I think committee, the easiest way to put it. It's going to be a committee, and I think you're going to see Langen running the ball a lot too.
Oh wow!
Maybe the quarterbacks running the ball too. So I think you can't look at it the way we're going to have an Isaiah Pacheco or anyone like that carrying the ball 15, 20 times a game.
Not even Monangai? You don't think Kyle Monangai is going to get 20 carries if they?
I hope so. I've been on the Monangai bandwagon since Don Bosco. So I think he could be a really good college player. He runs with great pad level and is physical for being a guy that's 5'7", 5'8" at best. So he does seem like the front runner to me, but I can't envision someone getting close to 1,000 yards this season.
I had a second question about the running back situation. All right, so after Monangai and Young, I would assume is the platoon. Do you see any of these other guys? Brown, Salam, Wright Collins. I mean, who is the one guy who might emerge there from the and surprise people on that depth chart? Brian, is there a name?
Yeah, I think Al-Shadi Salam has a chance. He had a good spring game. He had a good finish to spring camp. Sam Brown is, a 4-star recruit, highly touted. He doesn't enroll until the fall. I think he enrolled in the summer. He didn't enroll early like his other classmates because he was playing high school basketball and wanted to finish out his high school career, which is fine, but a rarity these days. I think he will probably come along, be more of a running back of the future than this season.
All right, more depth chart questions. Realistically, should we expect to see any true freshmen crack the 2 deep? From Matt and Randolph. Pat, you got anybody for me?
I wrote about this one in the newcomers post a few days ago. Thomas Amankwa out of Hillsborough was a really good high school player, and it seems like he's focusing on the defensive side. It should be a good training camp story. I would love to see if he's going to end up being an offensive or defensive player, but I think he has the versatility to be an impact guy out of the gate.
All right, good one. I like it. All right, moving on. Who another one position question? Who will be the starting lineman, or who are the 7 most likely to start, and at what position? I'll start out. I think for everything I've heard, Ireland Brown's your starting center. Build it around. Go ahead, Fonseca. Build me an offensive line. Can you do it?
J.D. Lorenzo will probably play. Curtis Dunlap. Holland Pierce, who I believe Sean told us he will be cleared for camp, will certainly have a role. Who's the other transfer that I'm forgetting?
Who's your left tackle?
Willie Tyler.
Willie Tyler, yeah.
And there's probably a name. I have to get the line in front of me. There's probably a name I'm forgetting here. But those 6 definitely will have will play.
Gus Zelenkas from last year had played a lot. I mean, there's still. I guess is it less settled or more settled than you want to be going into training camp? Do you think?
I think it's probably pretty. The top 5, top 6 are pretty established. It's a matter of building depth behind them, which in an ideal scenario you don't need the depth. Those 6 can really ride it out. But I'd say the top 6, top 7 are pretty clear.
All right. Let's go. Okay, so here's a question, Alex from Marlborough. Another position question. Linebacker is thin, with Drew Singleton still up in the air. Who takes the 3rd spot after Powell and Jennings? All right, so Deion Jennings, Tyreen Powell. I think they expect big things from Tyreen Powell. Give me a sense. I mean, who slides in there? Is it Anthony Johnson, a freshman? Who's a guy that you'll see there if Singleton doesn't get eligible?
Austin Dean might get some run. He had some run in the spring game. He had some run during spring camp. Anthony Johnson, certainly, as you said. I don't think he was as far along as Moses Walker was before he got hurt, but he has a ton of talent. He has the size. So if he can get into shape, if he got into shape over the summer, he certainly can contend. But those are the 2 names. But I think given that, I think Drew Singleton obviously is the ideal scenario. All
right. If linebacker is the thinnest position, and I think it is, cornerback might be the deepest position. You could tell me if you disagree with that. Who from this group of the corner of this question from didn't give me a name. So who from this group of cornerbacks do you think we'll see as starters? I mean, I think that they are obviously very high on Max Melton. Who you slide into the other cornerback spot? Shaquan Loyal?
Maybe Shaquan Loyal. Christian Isian has played well at times.
I thought he was a safety. Is he gonna longer beam?
Longer beam, yeah, that's right. Longer beam.
Yeah. All right. So but they have depth there, so that's going to be one position I think you would expect them to be pretty set at. All right. Let me see what other questions we got here. All right. This is a broader question. We talked about it a little bit, but it's worth hitting on again. Can we survive NIL as modern politics shows small dollar contributions go a long way? Where the push to get as many grads to give something, anything. And I think that's what you're seeing now. John Newman, who has a rival podcast, but that's his second most important thing now. running the Rutgers Collective. I think they think that they can make an impact if Rutgers donors give $20, a bunch of Rutgers donors give $20 a month and subscribe to this thing, they'll be able to make an impact. In order to really do it, though, you got to have a few big donations, right? I mean, you got to have somebody step up in a way that's uncommon for Rutgers to give money to make this go. If Greg Schiano's right and they need millions, that means you're throwing $500,000 at a player. I mean, that's what's happening in other places, certainly.
Rutgers needs these small donations to keep in competition with the rest of the people. But to your point, let's say 5,000 people donate $20 a month. That's $1 million. That's a decent amount. But if Rutgers is competing for a player with, say, for example, Texas A&M, which is full of rich alums who can pull out $10 million without even it hurting hurting them at all. So you can't really compare the two things, but Rutgers needs a much bigger pool and much bigger donations than just the monthly contributions.
You mentioned A&M. We haven't got into it on the pod yet, but Chase Basantes, the number one player in the state, out of Don Bosco, committing to A&M. I don't think there's any question that, and some of the numbers I've heard are just astounding. I don't know. They're just rumors. We don't have it confirmed. So, but upwards of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to get a high school player to go to. It is amazing. Rutgers will never compete with that. That's just not going to happen. Pat, how does that change recruiting? Does it? It's
so fascinating. Let's just call the numbers what they are. Like you said, we have no idea. But what I found so interesting, CJ Stroud, the Ohio State quarterback, has been reported to have a deal of about $1 million, right? So how is one of the best players in college football the same value as a high school offensive lineman who may not even be the best player in New Jersey? That's why the numbers, it's shocking on the surface, but I find it so hard to believe that Chase Basantes, even as high of a recruit as he is for Texas A&M, is probably, I'm only guessing here, the fourth or fifth best person in that recruiting class for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So how do they even compare these players? And I think what's happening is coaches are having a hard time justifying, okay, this kid's getting this much money, but this veteran on my team is getting less than that. Right. And he's not even playing yet. So yeah. I think it's causing a lot of issues from that regard.
It is wild. Yeah. And I have to finish. We have a question about this is another train. How has Schiano's return impacted recruiting? Just how much better are these commits compared to say 4 years ago? This is important to ever commit in the Big Ten. It is good. It's sort of amazing how the game has changed, even in this is his third. I guess this is his third coming around recruiting class, fourth recruiting class he's working on. It has, yeah. And it just that standpoint, I think you're going to see. Rutgers is going to have to start recruiting a different kind of kid. You're just not going to be able. You're going to be out, and maybe you always were. That's what the other part of it is. If a guy is considering an SEC school, chances are there was a payment taking place already in a lot of the situations. But now it's up. Now it's out on the board. There's bigger money going around. It really does change the face of recruiting and how he's going to have to handle it. It's going to be fascinating to see how that develops over the next few years. And I think it even more puts a bigger emphasis on his ability to find diamonds in the rough and become a developmental program. And that's why that's why he wants the money to keep these players, because once they get him in here, they get 2 years in the weight room. They make a guy into they make a 2-3 star recruit into a Big Ten player. They have to keep that guy. That's the emphasis where we're at with that. All right, let me see if there's any other questions here that are worth dive. Oh, here's one. This is good. With the changes in the Rutgers Rant lineup, who is now the funniest person on the podcast? Who do you got, Fonseca? Who's the funniest person on the podcast? Come on.
I think Lanny is much quicker to the quips than I am. So I'll nominate Lanny.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lanny too. I think he's got a personality here. He's got some one-liners. Right.
But Steve, your writing is always full of wit, which is why I think you're such a great. So you still get the title.
Most Rutgers fans who would say my writing is full of something that rhymes with wit. I don't know that wit would necessarily. See, that's a good line. Maybe I am the funniest.
You nailed it. All
right. Thank you everyone for the questions. Let's start with this, and let's end with this. Let's give me one prediction. So we usually end with predictions in the podcast. We don't have a game this week. that we can predict. Give me one prediction for training camp. What's something that's going to happen in training camp that's going to surprise people? I'm putting you on the spot. Whoever's ready, go first. Tell me what you think. Oh boy.
I'm gonna have to edit out some dead air.
Leave the dead air in. It's clear that you're not ready for this question. What do you got? Come on.
Oh my God.
Give me a prediction. Training camp prediction. I'll go first.
Kyle Monungai steals away the starting running back job and looks like a 20 carry guy. How about that?
Okay, that's good.
Completely contradictory to what I said.
What you said just 15 minutes ago. That's good.
Exactly.
That's good. I predict this. This is one that you just coming off of Giants camp, Pat. So Pat had to fill in for Giants camp over the weekend. Both of you had to fill in, and you saw how bad the offense was. I predict that the Rutgers offense is going to be a little ahead of the Rutgers defense through training camp. That's something that I think would be unexpected given all the changes on the offensive line. I've been wrong before. All right, Brian, you got a prediction?
I don't. My prediction is I have no prediction.
Okay. I predict that you better come up with one by the next podcast. Any final thoughts? What do we got? Closing comments?
Yeah.
No.
Bronny James to Rutgers is a lovely dream.
Right.
Can you imagine LeBron James at the rack?
That would be something else.
Just the thought of him sitting in the middle of like the 100 section. Well, enjoy that thought for now because that's probably never going to happen. But
is there any chance Bronny could be transferring high schools? Wasn't that how the NBA beat writers found out that LeBron was going to the Lakers? Bronny enrolled in a school in California.
That's right.
Is there any chance that he transfers to, say, Roselle Catholic for the season?
Oh, that'd be something else. So someone asked, if they get Bronny James, how does it affect Dylan Harper's recruiting? Which just cracked me up. I'm like, look, if they can get Dylan Harper, that's obviously far bigger than any other get that they would have at this point. So they'd have to feel like that would be a home run. Where's basketball recruiting at? We haven't talked about that at all. What's going on with the basketball program?
Yeah, they're going through their summer workouts. The thing is with recruiting, if in a scenario where they do get Bronny James, he wouldn't even be their best recruit in the class. Gavin Griffiths is ranked higher than Bronny James. They're waiting on Papa Conte, who's a 23 center, big time target for them. He's supposed to announce once he comes back home from Senegal. That'll be something to watch. Rutgers is involved. Nice. And yeah, they're kind of in wait and see there. Yeah, November is only 3 months away.
Road trip to Senegal. Let's make that happen. All right, guys, on that note, let's close it up. Thanks for all of your questions. Thanks for listening. We'll be back. We'll be at training camp. At least I'll be there Wednesday. Pat and Brian will be there for the next couple of weeks, and the podcast will be back on a regular basis. So we look forward to hearing from you sooner than later. Thanks for listening.